be in full retreat. Our economy will be roaring back.
Now, not even 2 months into his presidency, the talk of a possible American recession seems to be everywhere.
The R word, recession, wasn't even in the vocabulary a few weeks ago.
And Trump didn't rule out the possibility of a recession in a recent interview.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big.
That makes it sound like he's willing to trade a potential recession for the values and the goals that he has for the United States.
So how did the world's largest economy go from booming to stoking fears of a recession in just a few weeks? Let's start with the one place everyone is watching like a hawk.
For nearly a century, the United States stood as the anchor of the world's money system. The dollar ruled trade. Washington dictated lending terms. And Wall Street set the rhythm of global finance. But history never stands still. Empires rise on confidence and collapse when that confidence fades. And in 2025, the U.S. is facing the kind of financial storm it once warned the world about. The numbers are staggering. Over $37.8 trillion in federal debt, climbing by billions every single day. For the first time in modern memory, America owes more than it produces in an entire year. Interest payments alone top $1.2 trillion, a figure larger than the U.S. military budget. Analysts call it sustainably unsustainable. Politicians call it manageable. But investors quietly whisper another word: risk. The cracks began to show when credit rating agencies downgraded U.S. debt, warning that political gridlock made default a real possibility. Treasury auctions began to thin. Foreign buyers, once desperate for U.S. bonds, started looking elsewhere. And as America printed more dollars to cover old promises, inflation returned like a shadow that refuses to leave. Across the Atlantic, a different conversation was unfolding. In Cairo, Lagos, Nairobi, and Johannesburg, African economists saw what others missed: a power vacuum forming in the heart of global finance. For decades, Africa's role in the global system was simple: export raw materials, import finished goods, borrow dollars to cover the gap. But behind the scenes, a new architecture was taking shape. It began with the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, a vision to fund African trade without depending on Western institutions. Then came the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPSS, a platform allowing African countries to trade with each other in their own currencies. Suddenly, a farmer in Ghana could sell cocoa to a processor in Nigeria and get paid instantly in cedis, not dollars. A Kenyan exporter could ship goods to Egypt. No SWIFT code, no American bank in between. What started as a technical fix became a quiet revolution. Africa was building a financial network, for Africa, by Africa. When Washington weaponized the dollar through sanctions and trade wars, the rest of the world took notice. Russia, China, and even European allies began seeking alternatives. And Africa joined that wave, not out of politics, but out of necessity. BRICS nations proposed a new trade currency. African finance ministers began exploring digital settlement systems that could bypass traditional banking bottlenecks. Suddenly, what had once been theoretical, a post-dollar world, started to feel real. By 2024, at least 18 African countries had signed on to regional currency settlement agreements. And trade among African states surged by more than 35%, the fastest growth in the world. When the U.S. debt ceiling fight dominated global headlines, African leaders gathered in Nairobi and quietly asked a different question. If the world's richest nation can't control its own debt, why should we tie our future to its currency? Africa's transformation wasn't built on ideology, it was built on pragmatism. The continent holds 30% of the world's mineral reserves, 60% of its uncultivated arable land, and the fastest growing middle class on Earth. For investors, that combination spells one thing: leverage. And when capital needs a new home, it goes where growth lives. That's why global funds from the Gulf, Asia, and even parts of Europe began flowing south into African bonds, fintech startups, and sovereign infrastructure projects. Afreximbank's assets topped $40 billion. African Development Bank projects reached record highs. Nigeria launched its own domestic bond market in local currency, and it was oversubscribed. While America struggled to finance its own interest payments, Africa was financing its own future. For years, analysts dismissed Africa's economic rise as potential. They underestimated how quickly digital technology could rewrite finance. Today, across the continent, people move money with a text message. Kenya's M-Pesa handles more transactions than most European banks. In Nigeria, fintech platforms like Flutterwave and MoneyPoint process billions every month. In South Africa, blockchain-based remittance systems are linking small traders directly to buyers worldwide. This is what a financial empire looks like in the 21st century. Not marble headquarters, but millions of connected citizens who no longer need permission to trade. As America debates interest rate hikes and political debt ceilings, Africa's new financial ecosystem grows quietly, efficiently, confidently. International media rarely show it, but African finance ministers now speak with new authority at global summits. Their message is simple. We are not leaving the dollar tomorrow, but we are learning to live without it. And that subtle shift changes everything. Because once trade flows move in another direction, once capital finds new gateways, once confidence shifts, the center of gravity moves. What once flowed through New York and London now begins to pulse through Lagos, Cairo, and Johannesburg. Ironically, America's record debt, the very symptom of its dominance, has become the catalyst for others to rise. Every trillion the U.S. borrows erodes the trust that once made the dollar untouchable. Every political standoff in Washington reminds the world that even superpowers can mismanage prosperity. And in that uncertainty, Africa found its opening. It didn't come with a grand speech or a single policy. It came through quiet coordination, central banks linking, digital payment systems syncing, and governments daring to imagine a world where value doesn't have to pass through Western hands. That imagination is now becoming infrastructure. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, has the potential to connect 1.4 billion people into the world's largest single market by population. Combine that with fintech connectivity, and you have a financial base larger than the European Union's consumer pool. When that network runs on African rails, Afreximbank for trade, PAPSS for settlement, AfCFTA for logistics, you have a self-contained ecosystem. That ecosystem can issue its own credit, manage its own risk, and define its own value. It's not just a dream anymore. It's being built right now, day by day, transaction by transaction. The most revolutionary change isn't in the numbers, it's in the mindset. For generations, African economies measured success by Western standards, credit ratings, IMF scores, dollar reserves. Now, they measure success by impact. How many local businesses get financed? How many young entrepreneurs access credit? How many borders open to trade? The empire rising in Africa isn't built on debt. It's built on connection, not on borrowed wealth, but on shared opportunity.